When the boarding announcement crackled over the loudspeaker, Jack joined the line for Group 2. He handed his boarding pass to Karen, offering a polite smile. "Morning. Chicago's calling." Karen scanned the pass, her eyes flicking to the screen. Her fingers froze mid-keystroke. She looked up at Jack, then back at the screen, her expression tightening. "I'm sorry, sir," she said, her voice clipped. "There's an issue with your ticket. You're not cleared to board." Jack's smile faded. "What kind of issue?" "I booked this flight 2 months ago. Confirmed it last night." Karen's eyes darted to the side, avoiding his gaze. "It's a security flag. I can't let you on. You'll need to speak with our supervisor." She gestured vaguely toward a man in a navy vest standing near the jet bridge, already engrossed in a conversation with another passenger. Jack felt a familiar weight settle in his chest. Not anger, not yet, but the slow burn of recognition. He'd been here before in different forms. The clerk who followed him too closely in a store, the cop who asked for his ID while he jogged in his own neighborhood. He took a measured breath, keeping his voice even. "Can you tell me what the flag is? I've flown with your airline dozens of times. Never had a problem." Karen's lips thinned. "I'm not authorized to discuss that." "Please step aside. Sir, you're holding up the line." The word "sir" landed like a jab, sharp and deliberate. Behind Jack, a man in a gray suit muttered something about people always causing trouble. A woman with a toddler shot Jack a sympathetic glance, but quickly looked away. The line shuffled forward, passengers avoiding his eyes as they handed over their boarding passes. Jack stepped out of line, his grip tightening on his briefcase. The supervisor, a stocky man with a receding hairline and a badge-reading mic, approached, his walk brisk and authoritative. "What's the problem here?" he asked, addressing Karen rather than Jack. "Security flag on this passenger," Karen said, her voice low but not low enough. "System says he's a no-fly." Mike turned to Jack, his expression a mix of impatience and suspicion. "Sir, do you have any idea why your name might be flagged?" Jack's jaw tightened, but he kept his tone calm, deliberate. "No, I don't. I'm a lawyer. I fly every month. My record's clean. If there's a flag, it's a mistake. Can you check the system again?" Mike sighed, as if Jack's request was a personal inconvenience. "We don't make mistakes like this. The system's automated. If you're flagged, there's a reason." He glanced at Karen, who was already scanning the next passenger's ticket. "Step over here, please. We need to clear the gate." Jack didn't move. "I'm not stepping anywhere until you tell me why I'm being denied boarding. I have a right to know." The air around the gate grew tense. A few passengers craned their necks, curious. Others pretended not to notice, burying their faces in their phones. Mike's face reddened. "Sir, if you don't cooperate, I'll have to call security." A murmur rippled through the gate area. An older woman with silver hair and a navy cardigan leaned toward her husband, whispering, "This isn't right." A young man in a hoodie pulled out his phone, subtly angling it toward Jack and Mike. Karen, behind the desk, looked increasingly flustered, her fingers hovering over the keyboard as if unsure what to do. Mike's radio crackled, and he muttered something into it. Within moments, 2 airport security officers appeared, their boots heavy on the tile floor. The taller one, a man with a buzz cut and a stern expression, spoke first. "Sir, we need you to come with us. Now." Jack raised a hand, palm out, his voice calm but commanding. "I'm not resisting. I'm asking for an explanation. I've been denied boarding for no reason. If you're going to escalate this, I want everyone here to know why." The second officer, a woman with short braids and a more measured demeanor, stepped forward. "Mr. Thompson, right? Let's take this to the side." We'll figure it out. Jack nodded, appreciating her attempt to de-escalate, but he wasn't backing down. I'll move, but I'm not dropping this. I want answers, and I want them now. As he followed the officers to a small office near the gate, the weight of dozens of eyes followed him. Some were curious, some hostile, others uneasy. The older woman in the cardigan clutched her purse, her expression troubled. The young man with the phone kept filming, his jaw set. Inside the office, a cramped space smelling of stale coffee and printer ink, Jack sat across from the female officer, whose name tag read as Carter. Mike hovered near the door, arms crossed, while the other officer stood by the wall, silent. Officer Carter opened a laptop. Mr. Thompson, I'm going to level with you. The system flagged you as a high-risk passenger. It's an automated process, part of TSA's security protocol. I don't have the specifics. It could be a name match, a travel pattern, or something else. Something else, Jack repeated, his voice low. Like what? My skin color? My last trip to DC for a protest? Be straight with me. Carter's eyes softened, but she didn't answer directly. I know this feels personal, but the system's designed to catch threats. Sometimes it gets it wrong. Let me make some calls. Jack leaned back, his mind racing. He'd seen this before, not just in his own life, but in the lives of his clients, his friends, his family. The system was never as neutral as people claimed. He thought of his father, a Vietnam vet who'd been spat on at bus stops in the 70s, and his sister, a nurse who'd been pulled over for looking suspicious in her own driveway. This wasn't new, but it wasn't going to slide either. As Carter dialed a number, Jack pulled out his phone and opened the X app. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. He wasn't one for public outbursts. His battles were usually fought in courtrooms, with briefs and precedents. But this was different. This was public, deliberate, and wrong. He started typing. Denied boarding at Charlotte Airport. No explanation. Told it's a security flag. I'm a black man with a clean record. This is racial profiling, and I'm not staying quiet. He attached a photo of the gate, the crowd blurred, but the airline logo clear. Before he could second-guess himself, he hit post. Outside Pestic, the gate area was emptying as the Chicago flight boarded. The older woman in the cardigan lingered, her husband tugging at her arm. Helen, we're going to miss our connection, he said. I know, she replied, her voice firm. But that man didn't do anything wrong. You saw it. They singled him out. Back in the office, Jack glanced at his phone. His post was already gaining traction, retweets, comments, angry emojis. A local news outlet had picked it up, asking for a statement. Jack ignored the notifications for now. He looked at Carter, who was still on the phone, her brow furrowed. Any progress? He asked. She hung up, sighing. They're saying it's a name match, with someone on a watch list. Not you, but... Same last name, similar first. They're working on clearing it, but it'll take time. How much time? Jack asked. My conference starts tomorrow. I'm not missing it because of a clerical error. Carter hesitated. Could be hours. Could be a day. Jack's eyes narrowed. And in the meantime, I'm stranded here, humiliated in front of 100 people, because your system can't tell one black man from another? Mike, still by the door, shifted uncomfortably. It's not about race, he muttered. The system doesn't see color. Jack's laugh was sharp, humorless. The system doesn't need to see color. The people running it do. Carter glanced at Mike, her expression unreadable. Mr. Thompson, I'm doing what I can. If you want to file a complaint, I can get you the forms. I don't want forms, Jack said, his voice rising for the first time. I want accountability. I want to know why this airline thought it was okay to pull me out of line without a shred of evidence. And I want everyone to know what happened here today." His phone buzzed again. "A message from a colleague in Chicago. Just saw your post. This is outrageous. We're rallying support." Another notification. His post had hit 10,000 views. A third. A journalist from the Charlotte Observer was at the airport, asking to speak with him. Jack stood, his decision made. "Officer Carter, I appreciate you trying. But this isn't just about me getting on a plane. This is about a system that's broken and a company that's complicit. I'm not waiting for your calls. I'm taking this public." He walked out of the office, his steps deliberate, his briefcase swinging lightly at his side. The terminal was quieter now, the Chicago flight gone, but a small crowd had gathered near the gate, passengers from other flights, airport staff, and the journalist, a young woman with a notepad and a determined expression. "Mr. Thompson," she called, "I'm with the Observer. Can you tell me what happened?" Jack paused, feeling the weight of the moment. He wasn't just a lawyer anymore, or a passenger, or a black man wronged by a faceless system. He was a voice, one that could echo far beyond this terminal. He looked at the journalist, then at the crowd, and began to speak. "I was denied boarding today because of a security flag. No evidence, no explanation. Just a system that decided I didn't belong. This isn't just my story. It's the story of every person who's been profiled, dismissed, or dehumanized because of how they look. And I'm not going to let it go." The crowd grew. Phones were out, recording. The older woman, Helen, stood at the edge, her eyes bright, with something like pride. The young man in the hoodie nodded, his video still rolling. Jack's words carried, clear and unflinching, through the terminal and beyond, setting the stage for a reckoning that would shake the airline to its core. The terminal at Charlotte Douglas International Airport buzzed with its usual cacophony, announcements about delayed flights, the clink of coins in coffee machines, the muffled chatter of passengers. But near gate C-17, the atmosphere was different, tense, electric. Jack Thompson stood before a small crowd, his voice calm but cutting through the air like a blade. The journalist from the Charlotte Observer, Emily Woods, scribbled his words furiously, her pen racing across the pages of her notepad. Passengers' phones were raised, their cameras capturing every moment. Helen, the older woman in the navy cardigan, stood beside her husband, her eyes gleaming with a mix of indignation and admiration. "This isn't just about one flight," Jack continued, his gaze sweeping across the faces in the crowd. "This is about a system that allows things like this to happen. A system that marks people as threats without evidence, without explanation. And I won't let this go unanswered." Emily raised her hand, her voice cutting through the hum. "Mr. Thompson, you're alleging this was racial profiling. Do you have evidence to support your claim?" Jack gave a slight smile, but there was no warmth in his eyes. "Evidence? I'm a lawyer with 30 years of experience, with a clean record. I booked this flight, like dozens of others, without issue. Today I was pulled out of line, told I was a threat, and given no explanation beyond the system said so. If that's not profiling, what is?" The crowd murmured. The young man in the hoodie, who was filming, shouted, "That's right. I saw it all. They didn't even try to explain." Helen nodded, her husband, though looking uneasy, didn't contradict her. Emily leaned closer. "What do you plan to do next?" Jack took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment settle on his shoulders. "I want accountability, not just for me, but for everyone who's gone through this. I'll speak out here, on social media, in court if I have to. And I'm calling on everyone who saw this to do the same. Share this story. Make it heard." His phone buzzed incessantly, notifications from X, messages from colleagues, even a few strangers who'd seen his post. One was from his old friend Tom Ray, an investigative journalist with MSNBC. "Jack, this is blowing up. Call me. We can take this national." Jack nodded to Emily. "You'll get your story. But this is just the beginning." He turned to the crowd. "Thank you all for staying, for listening. This isn't just my fight. It's ours." As he finished, the crowd erupted in applause, not loud, but genuine. Helen approached him, her hands trembling as she clutched her purse. "Mr. Thompson, I was a teacher for 40 years. I saw kids divided by the color of their skin, and I thought we were past this. You're doing the right thing. I'll tell everyone I know." Jack smiled softly. "Thank you, Helen. That means a lot." Emily handed him her card. "I'll follow up tonight. We want to run this tomorrow morning, if you're okay with that." "I'm okay with it," Jack replied, taking the card. "But I want you to dig deeper. This isn't just about one gate or one airline. It's about how these systems work." As the crowd began to disperse, Officer Carter emerged from the office, her face tense. "Mr. Thompson, I just got an update. Your flag has been lifted. You can book the next flight to Chicago at 2:30. The airline's offering a voucher as compensation." Jack raised an eyebrow. "A voucher? You think that's enough for what happened?" Carter lowered her eyes. "I understand your anger. I'm just relaying what I was told." "Tell your airline I don't want vouchers," Jack said, his voice firm but calm. "I want a meeting with their leadership, and I want them to explain why their system flags people like me for no reason." Carter nodded, clearly uncomfortable. "I'll pass that along." As she walked away, Jack sat on one of the plastic chairs near the gate, his briefcase on his lap. He opened X and saw his post had reached 50,000 views. The hashtag Justice for Jack was trending, alongside dozens of comments from people sharing similar stories. A man in a Sikh turban removed from a flight for looking suspicious. A Latina woman detained over a name match. Each story was a piece of a larger puzzle, and Jack knew he held a spark that could ignite a real fire. He called Tom Ray. "Tom, it's Jack. You saw my post." "Hell yeah, Jack, and I'm not the only one," Tom replied, his voice brimming with energy. "This is everywhere. CNN's already asking for a comment. You ready to go national?" Jack paused, watching the stream of passengers passing by. He thought of his father, who never complained even when he was denied jobs because of his skin color. Of his sister, who kept her cool when police humiliated her. Of all those who stayed silent because they had no voice. "I'm ready," he said finally. "But I want this to be about more than me. Gather other stories. Make people see the whole picture." "Got it," Tom said. "Give me a day. We'll set up an interview. And Jack, be careful. Airlines are big players. They don't like being pushed." "I know," Jack said, "but I'm not backing down." By 2 p.m., Jack had booked a seat on the next flight to Chicago, but his mind was far from the conference. He sat in an airport cafe, sipping fresh coffee, when his phone rang. It was an unknown number with a Charlotte area code. He answered. "Mr. Thompson, this is Jennifer Cook, Vice President of Customer Experience at the airline. We heard about the incident this morning. I'd like to personally apologize and invite you to a meeting to discuss how we can make this right." Jack leaned back, his fingers tapping the table. Jennifer's tone was polished, professional, but there was a hint of panic in it. "I appreciate the call, Jennifer," he said slowly. "But an apology isn't what I'm after. I want to know why your system flagged me as a threat. And I want to know what you're doing to ensure it doesn't happen again." There was a pause. "I understand your concern," Jennifer said, her voice more cautious. "These systems are complex, and we work with TSA to—" "Don't give me complexity," Jack interrupted. "Your systems humiliate people. They erode trust. If you want a meeting, I'm in. But I'm bringing a lawyer and a journalist. And I expect answers, not excuses." Jennifer hesitated, then said, "I'll arrange the meeting. Tomorrow, if you're available. At our office in Charlotte." "I'll be there," Jack replied and hung up. He glanced at his phone. His post now had 200,000 views, and hashtag #JusticeForJack was trending. People were sharing petitions, calling for an investigation into the airline's practices. Local activists in Charlotte announced a rally outside the airline's office the next day. CNN and MSNBC confirmed interviews for the evening. As Jack boarded the flight to Chicago, he felt the weight of the morning give way to another feeling, not euphoria, but a quiet, steadfast resolve. He knew this was just the beginning. The airline might offer apologies, vouchers, or even compensation, but Jack wasn't stopping until there was real change. He thought of Helen, the young man with the video, the thousands who saw his post and felt the same outrage. This wasn't just his fight, it was a wave, and it was only growing stronger. In Chicago, when Jack turned on his phone after landing, a message from Emily Woods awaited. "Articles ready. We found 5 more similar incidents with this airline in the last 2 years. You ready to dig deeper?" Jack smiled, his fingers already typing a reply. "Absolutely. Let's tear this system apart." Chicago greeted Jack Thompson with a cold wind tearing through the streets and a gray sky promising snow. He sat in his hotel room near the convention center, his laptop open to the article the Charlotte Observer published that morning. The headline was blunt: "Black lawyer accuses airline of racial profiling after boarding denial." The piece detailed what happened at Gate C-17, with quotes from Jack, Helen, and even the young man in the hoodie, named Kyle, whose video had already garnered 1 million views on X. But the real bombshell was Emily's discovery. At least 5 other passengers, all people of color or with non-American sounding names, had reported similar incidents with Sky High Airlines over the past 2 years. None had received proper explanations or compensation. Jack's phone buzzed nonstop. His MSNBC interview, recorded via Zoom the evening after his arrival, aired in prime time. CNN scheduled a segment for the next day. The hashtag #JusticeForJack had morphed into hashtag Boycott Sky High, the airline's name now at the center of a national scandal. Activists in Charlotte, Atlanta, and New York organized protests outside the airline's offices, and a petition demanding a federal investigation into their practices collected 300,000 signatures in 48 hours. Jack was due to speak at the voting rights conference in an hour, but his mind was on another fight. He called his colleague, Layla Marshall, a civil rights lawyer with 20 years of experience in discrimination cases. "Layla, you see the article?" he asked, his voice calm but taut. "Seen it, and I'm not the only one," Layla replied, her tone as sharp as ever. "This isn't just your incident, Jack. It's a pattern. I've already contacted 2 other victims from Emily's article. They're ready to join a class action lawsuit if you're in." Jack nodded, though Layla couldn't see him. "I'm in, but I want more than a lawsuit. I want this airline to feel consequences, not just financial, but systemic. Their algorithms, their policies, all of it needs to be torn down." "Then we need a plan," Layla said. "Your meeting with their VP tomorrow in Charlotte is our shot. We'll go in with evidence, journalists, and public pressure. They won't wiggle out of this." "Deal," Jack replied. "And Layla, let's make this about more than us. Gather as many stories as you can. Every voice matters." The next day, Jack returned to Charlotte, his briefcase heavier with documents Layla had sent overnight. Testimonies from other passengers, reports of complaints to the TSA, even excerpts from internal airline memos Emily had obtained from an insider. The meeting with Jennifer Cook, Sky High Airlines Vice President of Customer Experience, was set for 10 a.m. at their downtown headquarters, a sleek glass building in the heart of the city. Outside, a crowd of protesters chanted, holding signs reading "Justice for Jack" and "End profiling." Police maintained a perimeter, but the air was charged. Jack and Layla entered the conference room, where Jennifer and two other executives awaited, a man in an expensive suit, introduced as the general counsel, and a woman handling public relations. Emily Woods and a cameraman from the Charlotte Observer were also present, invited at Jack's insistence. The atmosphere was tense, the smell of fresh coffee clashing with the cold stares across the table. Jennifer spoke first, her voice polished, but with a slight tremor. "Mr. Thompson, we deeply regret the incident on Sunday. It was an unfortunate error, and we're taking steps to ensure it doesn't happen again. We're prepared to offer you a full refund for your ticket, a $5,000 voucher, and a formal apology." Jack leaned back, his eyes locked on Jennifer. "You think a voucher fixes what happened? You humiliated me in front of 100 people, flagged me as a threat with no evidence, and now I learn I'm not the first. You've got 5 other documented cases in 2 years, and that's just what we know." The general counsel, a man named Richard, leaned forward. "Mr. Thompson, with respect, these systems are automated. They're designed by the TSA, not us. We're just following their protocols." Layla cut in sharply, slapping a stack of papers onto the table. "Don't shift the blame to the TSA. We have your internal memos showing Sky High knowingly used algorithms that disproportionately flag passengers with certain ethnic names or profiles. You knew there was a problem and did nothing." Jennifer paled, and Richard's lips tightened. The PR woman, who hadn't spoken yet, tried to defuse the situation. "We acknowledge there's room for improvement. We're already forming a diversity committee to review our practices." Jack shook his head. "A committee? You think that's enough? People are losing trust in your airline. Your stock's down 12% in 2 days. Your customers are boycotting you. And you're offering a committee." Silence fell. Emily scribbled every word, her cameraman quietly filming. The protesters outside chanted louder, their voices seeping through the glass. Layla pressed on, her voice cold and precise. "Here's what we propose. First, you publicly admit your systems discriminated against passengers and take full responsibility. Second, you hire an independent firm to audit your algorithms and policies, with the results made public. Third, you compensate all affected passengers, starting with the 5 we know about. And finally, you cooperate with a federal investigation already initiated by senators from 3 states. Richard flushed. "That's absurd. You can't demand." "We can," Jack interrupted, his voice calm but harder than steel. "And we will, or we'll go to court with a class action lawsuit that'll ruin your reputation even more than it already is." Jennifer glanced at her colleagues, then back at Jack. "We'll need to discuss this with our board. We'll be in touch." "You have 48 hours, Layla said, gathering her papers. "After that, we file the suit and hand everything we have to the national media." As Jack and Layla left the office, the protesters erupted in cheers. Jack stopped to speak with a few, thanking them for their support. Helen was there, holding a sign reading "Justice for All." "I knew you wouldn't give up," she said, her eyes shining. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind. Sky High Airlines faced intense scrutiny. The Federal Aviation Administration and the Department of Transportation launched investigations into their practices. The company's stock plummeted another 20%, and passenger numbers dropped by a third due to the boycott. Layla gathered 12 more victims of profiling, all of whom joined the lawsuit. CNN and MSNBC aired documentaries highlighting not just Jack's story, but those of others whose lives had been disrupted by similar incidents. By late December, Sky-High Airlines issued a statement admitting systemic flaws in their procedures and agreeing to all of Jack and Layla's demands. They hired an independent firm for an audit, paid compensation to affected passengers, and cooperated with a federal investigation. But for the company, it was too late. In January 2025, after months of financial losses and public pressure, Sky-High declared bankruptcy. Their assets were sold off to competitors, and their brand vanished from the skies. Jack stood in his Atlanta apartment, looking at a letter from Helen that had arrived in the mail. She wrote, "Mr. Thompson, you showed us one voice can change everything. I'm proud to have been part of this." Inside the envelope was a small pin she'd made herself, inscribed with justice for all. Jack placed the letter on a shelf next to photos of his parents and sister. He didn't feel euphoria. The fight had been exhausting, and he knew the system they'd exposed was just part of a larger problem. But as he looked out the window, where the first snowflakes fell on the city, he felt a quiet hope. Change had begun, not just for him, but for everyone who'd raised their voice alongside him. And that was only the beginning.